Good morning, everybody. This is the second day of the CREACT4MED annual conference. I hope you had a great evening yesterday and you are full of energy for this second day of the conference. Without further ado, I would like to introduce Kristina Prunerová. Correct? I pronounced well your name. She's from DG Neighbourhood South, European Commission, and she's the project officer of CREACT4MED. Kristina has been extremely helpful over the couple of years, particularly when we started the project, as I mentioned. We started it right before COVID. So we had a project which was designed for a pre-COVID period. And of course, we faced a lot of challenges at the beginning of the implementation because we had the strategy to implement in a completely different way where we could travel and then could really have all these face-to-face meetings in the countries. And then with COVID, we practically had to face the reality that we were all on a lockdown and we had to completely change the approach. And this was a great, of course, back then it was a challenge, but was also an opportunity because in reality, what we have tried to do is to digitalize as much as possible our implementation process. And this is what we have done over the years of the couple of years already. And Kristina was really very helpful in the sense that we tried to work together to reach where we are today. And I can say that although that was a challenge back then, this really became a great opportunity because not only we allowed us, in fact, to rethink how to do meetings and all this training academy and all this face-to-face stakeholder workshops. And then at the same time, we, number one, we reduced a lot of cost in terms of all this travel costs, but also in terms of the less contribution to the CO2 emission. And I think this is also important that we all, in all the projects, think about this. Of course, we need to see each other and then we need to interact, but at the same time, we need to think of one key condition is the sustainability of our planet. Of course, we came from 2 weeks in Sharm el-Sheikh in COP27, although I would say that the final declaration was not up to expectations to anybody, especially in Europe. But then we, as researchers, as actors in all the industries, particularly, for example, in the CCI, we need to think of the sustainability dimensions and our contribution to environmental, I would say, objectives under the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. So I think we all have to contribute and not to really do business as usual. And this is what it makes things, or we make our planet cleaner. So without further ado, Kristina, please, the floor is yours.
Good morning. Sorry for my voice. I'm not going to take much more time because you have actually much more interesting contributions than I already heard yesterday afternoon, the excellent talks. So I work for the DG NEAR, which is the Directorate General for Neighborhood and Enlargement Associations, and I work specifically for the Southern Mediterranean region. So in the EU newspeak, that means the 10 countries that are sort of bordering the Mediterranean Sea. And when we say regional projects, it means projects that cover more than 3 countries. So this is how I'm actually in charge of CREACT4MED, one project that has as a goal the cooperation among the countries and bringing together people from different countries to share lessons, to exchange experiences. And I'm actually very happy how it's going, despite all the challenges that we've lived in the last 2 years under COVID. So you probably know CREACT4MED because you are either receiving a grant, but I would like to give you an example of a project that will now develop in Morocco because we also have bilateral cooperation, which is done by the delegations. And I invite you everyone to go see the delegations. In each delegation of your country, there is a person responsible for culture and to whom it would be really great if you introduce your work and if you introduce the collaboration with CREACT4MED. It's also for me an opportunity that my colleagues get to know the project from the ground, and not only from me, from the reports that I send from Brussels. But in Morocco in 2023, they will launch a new project with the goal of strengthening the Moroccan cultural and creative industries. from the point of view as a vector of economic and social inclusion. So the focus will be on youth integration, will be also on women and other groups. There is an envelope of 10 million euros for 6 years, which I think it's a nice amount for Morocco, and it will be implemented under 2 different contracts. One will go to the Ministry of Culture and Finance and SME and Employment in order to improve the framework of the CCI and work on that. But there will be another grant given to the CCI Federation, which will then sub-grant to local activities and local hubs and local startups. So this all should start in 2023. And I think this is opportunity for those who are from Morocco or anyone else also to see if they could profit from this funding. This is, I have to say, one of an exceptional projects. The other delegations are still working on this, but we hope to activate the delegations more. And as I was mentioning to a couple of you, it's really sometimes difficult to keep culture and creative on the list of priorities because we have economic crisis, we have the war in Ukraine and others. But as we all know, this is really the backbone of society, the culture collaborations and the creativity is everywhere. So it's I hope that we will be able to secure more funding in the near future. That's all from me. I'm really looking forward to further discussions today. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Kristina. Any questions or requests for clarification to Kristina? I hope this is all clear, but Kristina, I have one question, and this is regarding the role of the European Commission to promote culture and creativity. So in the next programming phase, what are the possibilities, for example, especially for regional programs, also in collaboration with other areas of programming and funding of the European Commission?
I was going to speak about it shortly. Next to CREACT4MED, we have an all-around culture project, which is focusing more on, I would say, performing arts or visual arts. And it's also a sub-granting, this is majorly a sub-granting project. So 60% of the budget, which is 4 million for 4 years, is actually going to sub-granting. It's run by a Berlin-based organization, Mythos, but in cooperation with Al-Mawred Al-Takafi, which I'm sure many of you know, and Larry from Tunisia. And and this is also focused on South-South collaborations, which is a very demanded thing that we don't force the North-South sharing of experiences because they're not always relevant, that we allow for South-South collaboration. So this was enabled in this project. It started also like CREACT4MED 2 years ago, and we will have a follow-up of this project, a call for similar type of project in 2024, because this one will finish in 2024. So we're preparing for next year in 2023. We will have a new programming document that will set the framework for the next regional cultural project. So for now, we have the follow-up of all around culture, and we are hoping to have a follow-up of something like CREACT4MED, but probably focus also on gender equality. So taken from point of view of women economic empowerment or women empowerment in culture and creative industries. This is all in pipeline. I hope it will go through and will be approved, but end of 2023, you will hear more about the final framework as it will work.
Thank you very much, Kristina. I think this is also a good motivation for our group to continue working on culture and creativity with the dimension of gender empowerment, particularly in the Mediterranean region, where, as you all know, there are some work to be done, improvement to be done. Research that we have shown in MNES, the Euro-Mediterranean Network for Economic Studies, now it's becoming Euro-Mediterranean and African Network for Economic Studies. We showed that contribution of women in the labor market in the Mediterranean is the lowest worldwide in the MENA region. And then this also means that women have a huge potential to value their, I would say, human capital and human capital return into the labor market, and also via entrepreneurship. So the CCI, the creative and cultural industries, when they are really promoted, could be a vector for women empowerment and more contribution in the labor market, and also entrepreneurship. So there is a lot of work to be done on that aspect. But of course, this also means social transformation, and also more to be done on the cultural transformation. I mentioned yesterday, culture, it's a vector that is practically important, but it's not static. So we need to really think how to move the main determinants of culture forward to fit into our current civilization and challenges, societal challenges mainly. So thank you very much, Kristina. We'll continue working together on promoting these aspects. Yagane has a question.
Actually, I wanted to know what is the main particularity of Morocco, so that like 10 million budget is dedicated to Morocco, and in terms of the policymakers or local governments or national governments, what can they do to make their country interesting for donors like EU or other sources of funding?
Very good question. Why Morocco? Yes. There is no, I think, specific, let's say, partnership agreement on this. I have to say that the bilateral cooperation of the delegations with the countries is decided by the delegations. So you have to have a very strong person or persons inside the delegations that have an idea that CCI is really the good sector into which to invest. Of course, they need also very good local partners who are able to help them to shape such a program. But in case of Morocco, what the delegation did, they hired basically an expert to tell them, we want to support something in culture in Morocco. Tell us what's the best niche for the money that we can give. And the expert did, let's say, a 9-month study together with local stakeholders and came up with this idea of supporting the CCI in this format. One as a technical assistance to the government to improve the log frame, and another one as the grant. This is also linked to the fact that the cultural entrepreneurs or any actors should be in touch with the delegations and try to encourage them to work in the sector and show them how valuable it is, how much jobs you're able to create through your hubs and other, because many times it can be lack of information. Can be the lack of knowledge of the place. A lot of the people who work at the delegations are there for 3 years. So of course they don't have the time to get to know everything. So that's at every occasion I'm asking the local actors to be proactive and go to delegations in order to inform them what's going on, because they have limited time and resources to find out also for themselves. And I have to say that this was partially a little bit of revival of relations between EU and Morocco. They also tried to join the Creative Europe program, but this didn't happen, unfortunately. So instead, they are trying at least to introduce this. But it's a long-term advocacy lobbying that we have to all do. We do it from the headquarters, but of course, we are many times overrun by priorities such as security, such as economic development, and so on. So we need to be more proactive.
From the perspective of the Global South, is there any kind of intentional dialogue going on between the work being done here in the Mediterranean and, say, Latin America, South America, and some of the activities happening from, say, Mexico on down through?
It's the trouble of the European Commission that we are divided by the regions. And there is a DG NEAR which works in the Southern Mediterranean, Western Balkans, and the Eastern Partnership. And we are in a way coordinated among ourselves, but then the rest of the world is dealt by DG INTPA, formerly DG DEFCO, DG for International Cooperation, and they have their own strategies. The goal is to get as closer to the ground, so not starting a strategy in Brussels and imposing it all around the world, but going to the delegations, to the ground, to the local stakeholders, and really make it best fitting for what's going on in the country. normally regional programs are a minority because the bilateral should be really the ones prevailing because they're the closest to the ground dealt by the delegations. I know that in Latin America, there is a program with one of the regional organizations working in CCI, but I don't know the details. Similar thing is being done in Africa with African Union because that's a counterpart for the EU. So some of the regional money is given to African Union Secretariat in order to do something. But yeah, most of the most important and interesting work is actually done on the bilateral level, which is the strategy of the EU, not to have like a global approach, but become really local and locally fitted.
Thank you for this clarification, Kristina. Now we move straight away to the keynote speaker of this conference.